Thank you for accepting the invite for this particular session. Especially with us, we have Bram uh, Vijfhuizen, right? Bram, did I pronounce it? Yeah, excellent. Bram is one of the industry veteran, especially when it comes to integrations or when it comes to setting up the digital transformation framework for organizations, where name it on the APIs or the automations or the process mining part of it, and has been advocating the Infor velocity suite. So Bram comes in as a product manager over there. We are all aware of him, very familiar face for us, Bram. Thank you, Bram, for joining us today.
All right.
Just to introduce and set the context over here, for me, is Velocity Suite, as we talk about. It supports APIs through the modern cloud native infrastructure, be it the RESTful services or the integrations via ION, the framework that we talk about. These capabilities make it a very powerful platform. So, and help us get into the digital transformation, which every organization or every customer on date is on the journey with. I have a set of questions for you, Bram, which we will be discussing as a part of this interaction. And let's keep it factual.
Sure.
Anything from your side that you before we start on it?
No, nothing really. Let's have a conversation. That's fine.
Right. So let's talk about this API-based real-time integration, which is very much a requirement of the current services that customers are looking for, from the microservices or the cloud environment, especially Cloud Suite.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you have been attending our events like lately the user group, North American user group, or velocity events, then you must have noticed all the innovative value that comes with our industry cloud platform, and also that they also show a lot of potential, but there's for many a prerequisite. So to really leverage from these services, you really have to either use our standard or develop your own kind of API-based services to really create proper value with them. And say many of these services are really required for today's and tomorrow's business, because people would like to have instant insights or take instant actions, small or large. So within these industry cloud platforms, we enable these services, and a lot of them really rely on where we rely on our database REST services. That is how we enable these innovative services in the context of the LN-based cloud suites. So yeah, I think that is something to really to be aware of. And if you really understand which services brings which value, then there is still a lot of you to think about, to get a grip on, to really drive the business to the next level in, say, the decades to come. Talking about it, I think what is really important with the approach of APIs is that they basically, in our case, they belong to the extensibility message, the extensibility story, meaning that we basically provide a cloud suite as a service or a platform, but it's still open for change, for innovation. So it's not like a solution that is kind of an end solution, but especially through the API-based connectivity, it allows you really to adapt your business in the right direction and be better and be more successful over time. And I think that is really important to think about when you think about what's the value of a cloud suite for me initially, but also when you're using it, how to grow further, as we also keep adding more services and functionality as well in there, that mainly is driven by an API-based approach. Do you want me to give some examples maybe?
Oh yeah, I'll say, see, the idea of this webinar is to bring in obviously the importance of the API-based framework and the testing of it together, because it's important, the stability of that framework which has been established. So, so many of the customers who are there with Infor or other organizations, other ERPs, big and small, everybody has the responsibility to make sure that the testing is continuous. So how do you see that being conducted manually versus did you experience comes up with different customers for the automation
Yeah.
standpoint?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, testing is a practice that is already there for decades, right? Especially in the days of when on-premise was really like the key area for all of us to be in business. And so that is still valid. But I mean, the level of complexity that was there even then across applications or across solutions that now has become even more advanced or complicated with the addition of all these innovation services, or also in the way how a cloud suite is composed. They all have their individual areas of functionality and they're interconnected. So what you see right here is that if people really consider or start a journey to a cloud, that also in the way how you can guarantee that you're not breaking the business really needs to change as well, and mindset and thought process, like how to handle that. And especially as when you go to a cloud suite, the amount of potential to change your business from an innovative or a value point of view, there are so many parameters or combinations to think about, like if I go this, how do I test that, how high is the risk and stuff. So we see a lot of customers struggling with that, and when they don't change their approach towards testing, they still stick with this manual craftsmanship of building test cases and stuff, which is, it doesn't fit. Our milestones are always aggressive, right? There's no time to really think about testing, not so much. So you descope, you basically you go for less, and then suddenly there is still this situation that you forgot to test or didn't think about it. So yeah, so also in this testing area, I think people also have to change in how you approach it, and it has to be more like from supporting the business properly and confirming you are done and you've done it, instead of being this IT oriented department, if you like, that is focusing on a software build and tries to also break it or test it. That type of change is, like in the business, also in this area, is really like a mandatory change that people
Right.
have to consider to
Right.
really become successful like this.
So here, the part what you mentioned, you picked up the right term, business processes. Now, when they're mapped across, and when the APIs come into play, it's not within the ERP, but in an ecosystem where ERP is one of the applications, and it's an integrated application framework where data is moving across different applications. So regression testing is what would you be talking about that?
Yeah, so as you know, we changed our go-to-market as well. In the earlier days of our cloud releases, we had these monthly releases, and we learned through the hard way, so to say, that to really use every month as a major release requires a lot of additional work, like quality assurance. But even during the daily builds, like just like every day, we also build the product, even within the days, and then do regression tests to be sure, because there's a lot of moving parts in here that shouldn't break. So driven by that knowledge we learned from that, we have reduced the amount of major releases to April and October because of this, to also make it manageable, better manageable for us. So that is how we do it. And you are totally right. Just consider a cloud suite as a composition of a lot of moving parts. To keep these unbreakable just takes a lot of testing efforts as well. So as I said, at a daily level, we do also automated regression tests within all the different components as well. And then also towards the delivery and the milestones, we also have also other types of automated tests as well, also to be sure that we cover say whatever has to be covered. And if that would ever be like a manual task, you would never be able to fulfill that. It's too much from a human testing point of view. So that is where we really are relying a lot on automated testing across the whole cloud suite. So that's beyond LM as
So
well.
how do you see this, like a change management owning this test automation? How do you see that from the organization standpoint, Bram?
I think that is I think one of the major changes that people should be aware of when you move into, for instance, a cloud-based solution, is that the level of advancement or complexity that is within it is that it's fairly easy to break the business or to impact it in a negative way. So if the business side of the things that is accountable for guaranteeing the service to the business is owning also quality and testing, that also gives them a better grip on rejecting maybe if the change is too risky, or to approve that it doesn't really harm the business to a certain level, if you like. So I think, as I mentioned, instead of an IT focused thing like testing software, if you like, you should better test like, what is the business now, what will it become, and how do I prepare my organization for this change to the business and still move on and be successful, right? So I think that is why it should be like a business oriented or owned service, if you like. That's
Right.
true. Yeah.
Right. A very interesting part about testing or regression part is the data is dynamic. It keeps changing. It's not a fixed product testing that you pass the same data to expect the same results. The data keeps changing its form.
Yeah.
So when it comes to APIs, the risk is higher because it's between two applications, where two independent applications, including one ERP. It becomes a bigger responsibility from the business as well to make sure that all the permutations and combinations of these data are tested. So how do you see that? There are two aspects that come in which you can talk about, is data driven testing as well as the technical testing of the APIs as well. Both of them, I believe, should be equally important. How do you prioritize them?
I don't think you can prioritize them. You need them both together because, as you say, the data or the data set is a reflection of today's business, and it involves not even two applications, which could be like a point-to-point type of integration. But if you look at the cloud suite, uh, just as a user, how many parts are basically interacting with you or you are interacting with, that's even way more than two. So I would say, to better understand how the software service has to support the business, you have to understand the data first as it reflects what the business does. And also technically, the service should be reliable, should be able to be resilient to business demands like peaks and lows and stuff. So I think actually they're two aspects of one view on how you should test. You should test on both at the same time, because also non-functional things like scalability or resilience is something you should take care of as a service as well, right? And that is where the technical testing is also very important, but it's defined by what the data is, like the data or results set, if you like. So yeah, I would say you should not prioritize them. They basically belong together as one, and you shouldn't discriminate the two in whatever sense, like priority. So yeah, as I say, and yeah, the data triggers what logic will be called, or the data triggers which APIs will be involved to orchestrate or to flow. So you really need both parts to properly test for the business. So that is my
One part,
viewpoint.
please go ahead. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that's why people cannot just take their current knowledge on testing, like application testing on-prem. You really have to reconsider and rethink all that based on what the world is about today, right? So
Out of my excitement, I'm just asking. This is not nowhere related, but something on the API front. Uh, I know Infor Ion, the OS, the kind of maturity it brings in establishing connection between two applications. So, how do you advocate? Say, if there are two applications, two independent applications. So, which framework, and say the third party application also brings in its own framework of integration. So how to identify which is a better API framework? Say maybe because maybe from the OS and the Ion standpoint, you can throw some light.
that's an interesting one, because like the cloud suite is not say a closed solution. So there's always a way that somebody involves a third-party solution within the cloud suite. So, but specifically looking at LN, what we have offered so far, as well as within the LN Studio, we have the bflow module where people can build especially the LN-centric testing of business processes. And also regarding the extensions that they build, they will also be able to test that. But beyond that, it becomes more complicated, because if you would like to test a business process with an iron workflow and a workspace with widgets, you really have to think more thoroughly about what kind of tests you can use. And so, yeah, there are, of course, like the obvious platforms as a starting point, like a Selenium or others. But I think in that area, there is still way much more to gain to really come to how do I secure my business when I'm dealing with a cloud suite. So there is not really a single answer to this. You really have to understand what is contained in the suite and which parts are business critical or mission critical, if you like. Those have to be taken care of by a certain approach. But I think there is not really something like one to recommend that's like a Swiss Army knife of things. That is, I think, not easy. So I think it ends up into a combination of test platforms depending on what makes sense to the business to guarantee.
Right. I understand. Like, good that you brought in about bflow. Has been there for long and provides a lot of it's easy to build and scale bflow, but I think it's limited to the Infor cloud suite environment. But when the context that we're talking about here is APIs, it brings up a bigger ecosystem which needs to be tested, a regression which is mapping multiple applications, data flow, as well as dependency of the data. That's one thing. Second part is, I believe, from test automation, the evidences also have to be captured. There's a lot of learning that comes out of when you establish a test automation framework, that these evidences brings in a lot of learning in the form of bringing back the root cause, identifying the root cause, and learning like what exactly the simulation worked out 6 months back or a year back, or so. That's something, do you think a bflow can achieve?
Yeah, so as I said, the whole history of bflow comes from the days of on-prem, and as we are delivering to many, say, regulated industries from an SDLC, from a software development lifecycle point of view, we have to collect everything from designs up to test reports and results. In cloud, to your point, indeed, also root cause analysis is also required in the case of an issue. So we always have to justify exactly what has caused the issue and what is your improvement plan. So I think data collection, like test results and what you test, is something that becomes more like regulated and more like compliance instead of a free choice. So that is where bflow does provide some of the results, but to your point, it doesn't cover the testing of a full cloud suite. So you really you need more than bflow to really be able to cover that area as well. Yes.
Right. Excellent. Thanks, Bram. So for all the audience over here, please drop in your messages over here. If not now, we'll surely get back to you with the responses basis of this interaction that we're having with Bram. It could be related to APIs, or it could be related to testing. It could be related to the framework. Please drop in your messages. We are live both on YouTube and LinkedIn at this time, and we'll be sharing this video with all for better for more understanding, or from the context of test automation. Going further, Bram, very interesting part which comes in to my mind is the self-healing concept from the testing standpoint. It's not about monotonous testing of the processes. How do you see a self-healing coming in? Because the time to market has to be reduced. Small changes which are not affecting the business processes should be accommodated easily. Should you think an intelligence of self-healing will add more robustness and and bring in more intelligence to the system, self-healing.
Yeah, I think that can help in various areas. It will indeed reduce the costs of testing in general. It reduces the time and the efforts being spent on testing by automating it. And as you say, if you have insights into what kind of software changes or content changes are planned, you can also, by using intelligence and self-healing, you can also learn from these changes and also maybe expand on the coverage or maybe expand on the amount of permutations or scenarios that you have to cover. Because to your point, indeed, if the speed to deliver becomes shorter, there's also less time to think about testing. It all has to accelerate. And yeah, a human-based effort to test is of course usually slower and more error prone than having something like automation and intelligence. Really helps a lot. So it can quickly also improve the test coverage, I think, and it also gives you faster feedback on how you progress and how your results are. So also, if it would be owned by the business, people can more easily also maybe change their commitments. If they have promised something, they can still reject and say, like, maybe we have to test more and things like that. So I think in many areas, a self-healing or a self-learning type of solution does really make sense for this world of cloud suites and very complicated environments. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, but I was interacting with one of the CIOs where they mentioned about their extensions, and their interest in automation was primarily to focus on how good their extensions are behaving against the patches that are incoming from Infor. So their focus was completely on that part. So he said that as per him, that when a business process is not impacted by a change, then it should not affect the testing part as well. So it can be something on the UI or the UX part. So context of testing is very important when we talk about self-healing, right?
But I think you're referring to extensibility. I mean, with the introduction of APIs, we have added these also to the, say, vocabulary of extensibility. So if people were used to develop extensions like an application or a session extension, now you can also invoke API calls from other parties. So the capabilities of an extension also, they have been, say, extended. There's more possible, but also the amount of things that can go wrong, the risks of failure are also increased, right? So that is why testing is really like an important skill to care about.
Right. So Bram, as Sailotech, we also have a platform for test automation, which we have got it reviewed with you, TestEnsure. But not talking about TestEnsure, I want you to be an independent, as an independent consultant. If an organization is looking for test automation to implement, what are the top 3 features that they should be looking for from a test automation standpoint?
Well, as you already mentioned, there should be a high level of automation possible to make it repeatable or repetitive. We also addressed you have to prove yourself, your results, your outcome. And that is not only for the short term, like to sign off, but also from an internal or an external audit point of view. If you will be like FDA compliant or things, you also have to keep track of these as the evidence that you care about your software and what you deliver. So automation capabilities, a powerful vocabulary so that you can test as many combinations of, say, LN and maybe iron and things like that, is, I think, the freedom to model test is really important. To manage them properly from a compliance point of view, I think is also important. And last but not least, I think the power of the APIs, at least, is it's open standards. And also in the test environment, you should stay away from too many proprietary standards. It gives you a lot more access to people with a modern skill set. And I think that's also something really important to deal with. So really like an open platform to use. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Anything else, Bram, from your side? Because we wanted to be concise and very precise about the topics that we're covering. So rather than making it a long this one. So thank you for your time
Sure.
and for your insights and have a great vacation as you plan for it. And
Yes.
we'll be in touch, Bram. Thank you again for joining us in this session with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me, and hope to see you later.
Right. And for the audience, as I said, basis of the interaction that we had with Bram, please let us know your comments and your questions. I'll reach out to Bram and we'll see that we both address it together for you. Thank you again. Thank you, Bram.
Bye-bye.